There's always something interesting when I have Nick on the podcast here, and we're going to talk about SaturnSwap. He's been teasing me about this for the last, I don't know, month and a half. I don't know how long it's been.
2 months, maybe.
2 months, yeah. But, you told me all this stuff, and we're going to do an interview and dig into it deeper. But now we're finally here. We're going to learn more about Saturn stuff and some of these really cool innovations that you're bringing to Cardano, and you've picked up from all different other ecosystems. So this is going to be really interesting. And Nick, welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Okay. What have you got? What have you built here in your dark cave over the last few months that's going to blow everything out of the water? Like you've told me some stuff here. It's pretty exciting. Yeah,
so I'll give a little bit demo later, but I'll talk about it first. I am happy to say the cave is light, and I'm actually using a decent chair today. So that's first of all. I'm on the decent chair. My brother gets the plastic chair today. But so basically been working on SaturnSwap, which is a DEX on Cardano. Now, I know a lot of people have said, why do we need more DEXs on Cardano? I'm always a fan of more of anything, if anything can improve. But specifically why a DEX on Cardano is because this is a no-batcher order book DEX. So what that means is that SaturnSwap is a DEX that does not use a batcher to route and fulfill transactions. And I'll kind of get into a little bit of why that's very impactful in the future. And of course, it's on using Icon and everything, so we get all that performance from all the latest tech as well. But specifically where crypto is in kind of there's two models in cryptocurrencies in these blockchains. The first is the UTXO model. This was pioneered by Bitcoin, and this basically works like cash. You got a $5 bill. You give the $5 bill, someone gives you $4 and change if you buy something for $1. Whereas Ethereum is more like an account model where you've got a bank account, they just subtract some numbers and then they keep that balance that way. And why UTXO, which is what Cardano is pretty unique for, there's also two types of DEXs. There's this AMM, automated market maker DEXs. Those are popular on Ethereum. And then there are order book DEXs where you basically put orders onto some sort of ledger and then people take those orders at the price that's given. And most DEXs, almost all of them on Ethereum are automated market makers. And a lot of them on Cardano are also automated market makers. But one of the problems with this, and this has kind of been memed on by other people in the crypto community, is that if you have a pool where automated market makers, you have a pool of assets. You have, let's use Ethereum as an example. You have 10 Ethereum and you have some stablecoin, let's say USDC. The ratio of the assets in the pool dictates the price. Cardano does that too now, where you have ADA into a pool with some other asset, and that the ratio dictates the price. The problem is this pool on Cardano is one UTXO. And unless you do some very fancy chaining, you can only spend a UTXO once per block. And so this is where that meme has come from multiple years ago, where you can only do one transaction per block or something. And it's obviously not true, but it has been memed into every other crypto community. I'm not sure if many people in Cardano even know about the meme, but that's kind of still pervasive. But it's not true.
Yep.
So basically what SaturnSwap does is instead of using the AMM method, where there's a pool of assets in a UTXO and then it gets spent, it's using order books. So people put their orders onto a blockchain as a limit order. They just put it right in the smart contract, and then people come and they take the order that they want. And so this is much faster. You only have to do one transaction to actually fulfill a swap order. And also, you don't have to do any of this fancy chaining to get multiple orders in the block, because anyone could just come in, take the orders they want. It's just one trade run on the UTXO. And I'll explain it with a demo if it's a little bit confusing a little bit later. But this is the core retail value of SaturnSwap. It's way faster than other DEXs as a result. And that's kind of the retail user impact of this. So when they come to SaturnSwap, they'll make their trade. It'll be super fast. We do, automatic transaction chaining and error correcting if things are wrong, et cetera. So we really focused on the absolute smoothest possible user experience. And, I get yelled at because I have a lot of friends on other blockchains like Ethereum and Solana. And I had them, take a look and test it out on the pre-prod network. And they were telling me also that you got to do this, it's got to do this, it's got to feel smoother here, this. And they were basically coaching me through everything.
Yeah.
So very, very thankful to them. But we really have to make sure Cardano is at a top tier user experience. And I'll show how actually Cardano can get better user experience than these other chains in a little bit. But basically, that's the core retail value of SaturnSwap. It's very fast, and you can get those trades very quickly. It's very good for things like meme coins, but also good for things like Iagon and Rosen and World Mobile and things that are traded a little bit higher market caps because you get your orders super quick. But that's the retail value.
Okay.
The project value, this is kind of where we have some good stuff. So we announced yesterday we are doing optional project royalties. This is not the most amazing feature in the world, but it is important because you see a lot of meme coins today operating like NFT projects, where they're building a community on Twitter, and they're kind of they're using social media to garner social attention and things like that. And of course, there's no real product behind it. So Royalties has helped NFT projects in the past, and it can help these as well. Some projects will use it, but not all of them. But that's kind of a smaller feature. The really big feature for projects, and this is kind of what we're going to use not only to convince Cardano projects to join SaturnSwap, but also really moving into other chains to convince them to come over, is let's say you have a project on SaturnSwap. You put some liquidity onto SaturnSwap. All of the liquidity for your project's asset, for your project's token, you gain the staking and voting rights for that token. So let's say you've got a project on Cardano, you've got a token, and you put in 1 million ADA of liquidity in, but a lot of users buy it up or add more liquidity. And so now you've got 10 million ADA of liquidity for your token. The project owner will then get that 10 million ADA of staking and voting rights. So this is only possible on the Cardano blockchain. This is hugely impactful to projects because now projects, a lot of them run stake pools. They get significantly more ADA staked for their pool, but also, and the big deal with this is governance and catalyst. So basically, when the treasury opens up, they'll now have 10 million extra ADA to vote for their proposals in Catalyst or vote for them to get various contracts in the treasury. And it really puts the power into the project. So projects building on Cardano will not only get a good DEX trading experience, but now they get significantly more value from the ADA that is staked. And this is for people that aren't in Cardano. This is because on Cardano, your ADA assets operate. You could do two things with the ADA assets. You can pay with ADA, but you also stake your ADA, and those are within the same address, but there's two different keys. And so that's basically how that works. So now projects will gain a significant amount of stake and voting rights from using SaturnSwap, as opposed to some other DEXs. But the real important thing is when governance opens up, they can use that to vote. And it not only decentralizes the network, but it convinces projects to come on board. And I'll tell you a little secret on kind of why I wanted to do this. Okay. So we look at basically one of the reasons I made SaturnSwap instead of just doing some other joining another DEX on the chain is because I've seen a lot of stuff with Solana and the meme coin hype and everything like that. And meme coins are great; they're all fun and they're not going away in crypto. But we know that's not the end game for crypto. It's just not. What I predict, and this is a little bit of kind of predicting into the future, what I predict is going to happen is maybe a year, maybe 2-3 years from now, you're going to start to see projects, not just projects, you're going to see real companies IPOing on blockchains. Once it's properly legally allowed to do so in things like the United States. We just had a bill passed through Congress just the other day, which was very encouraging for a lot of the crypto industry. I forgot exactly what the name was, but I'm sure people will put it in the comments. And so this is kind of a trend we've seen. We've seen the Bitcoin ETF, we've seen Ethereum. Crypto is not going away, and governments are coming much more on board with the idea that they can have these assets on a publicly available ledger like Cardano. And so my prediction is traditional finance is going to come to the blockchain within 2 to 3 years, and they're going to choose which blockchain do we want to build, do we want to put our ETFs on, do we want to have our partners IPO on, which blockchains do we want these assets to go on. And Cardano has to be a top tier competitor in those bids. And my conjecture is Cardano is great because one, there's never been a hack, or I guess there's never been any malicious hack on Cardano. So automatically from a security perspective, very, very enticing. You've got obviously fast trading and things like that, which will no doubtedly be ready in the 2-year time span. But also a lot of these institutions will see, wow, if we go with Cardano and we have our assets on SaturnSwap, now we also get additional staking rights and voting rights. So now we're a lot more part of the Cardano community. You can have someone that says, I want to start a company. Maybe they get some funding from Catalyst, and the exchange is that in 5 years' time, they IPO on Cardano. And then all of a sudden they get all of the liquidity as voting rights for them in the future. So it not only decentralizes the network, but it really gives a lot of power to the projects, and it entices them to build on this chain, because this is not possible on any other blockchain right now. This is like core. This is one of the things that's core, unique to Cardano. No other chain has this. And so I really want to push this type of thing, because this is, people always say, what does Cardano do that Ethereum or Solana doesn't? Well, this is it. This is a really enticing prospect for any project that's looking to build on this chain.
Wow. Okay. You've dumped a lot on me there.
Yes, so I apologize for a little bit of a rant.
Well, yeah, I know you're excited. You got to get this all out. So first off, order book, faster, no batches, so overall lower fees. So we've got that in the back.
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Then we have that royalties thing. You kind of glazed over that really quickly, but I really, really like that. It makes sense because you do it on the NFT side of things. So let's do it on the native asset side of things. That's a really good moneymaker for any project out there, especially those meme coins or small projects. Launch a token, get the royalties from the trades. That's amazing too. I'm assuming there's minimums like 1 ADA or something, or it could be half.
Yeah, there's the min UTXO. That is a problem. We are figuring out ways to make it lower. We're hoping with governance they could just lower the parameter. That would be nice, Charles, if you're listening to this. But I'm kidding. But yes, that's currently what it would be at.
Yeah, but I guess you Babel fees might come into play in the future as well, and you have lots of options there to not just use ADA, but use anything as your fees. And then the whole governance side of things, that just makes sense.
Yes.
I never even thought of that. But the DEX is.
I haven't seen anyone talk about it.
Yeah, well, you look at some of the other DEXs. They have their ADA like MintSwap or Liquid. They have all the ADA, and they use the ADA as voting within their ecosystem. So they have mini governance things. So that's another way of doing it as well. But having the project actually have control of that and use the staking to their own stake pool. That's fantastic.
It secures the network even more. It just makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
So that's kind of the core. We've been kind of keeping that a little bit secret because I do think it's super impactful. I mean, this is kind of what we're going to use to convince BlackRock, for example, to come into Cardano. The bigger projects to say, hey, build here. Here's a significant value proposition. So the royalties thing is great for meme coins, everything, but I really do think that the staking and the governance is the huge value proposition for Cardano. Moving into the future. But I personally really like, and I do like meme coins, but like snacks, but I really do like NFTs more from the art. So I came from the NFT background a lot more, and just the royalties kind of just made sense to me. And so I thought, well, these projects are kind of like NFT projects in a way too. Might as well allow them to do some royalties. And of course, it's all optional. They don't have to.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. And I love the idea of like institutions, and we're seeing a lot more of them now in Fund 12 as well, put in proposals and looking for funds. So they're starting to change here. They know that there's money on the table. There's the treasury to tap into. So having this extra option to gain more ADA and then use it in their governance for voting on Project Catalyst or the Treasury, DREPs, whatever comes in the future. Amazing. So absolutely brilliant.
I've seen a lot of criticism. This is for past things of Catalyst, and they're slowly been improving it. But I've seen a lot of criticism of things like Catalyst. Oh, it's a cash grab and things like that, and you've got and this and that. And smaller projects have a hard time getting it. Well, now they have a much easier time. It's still not going to be super easy, but they have a much easier time kind of getting some of their proposals through because they've got an extra, couple million ADA to vote with. And if they can make a good pitch to the community saying, hey, we're this project, we're really committed because we've got, this, and this. I think that's a really nice additional value proposition for those projects to come on board.
All right. Absolutely awesome. I love Catalyst. I've got my Catalyst hoodie on. I don't know if
Oh,
you can
nice.
see that
There you
there. Yeah, exactly.
I have two Catalyst proposals as well, but I'm not going to show them here. I just want to talk about SaturnSwap.
Yeah, I'll put the links in the show notes for you. So
Cool.
anyone interested in supporting you guys, you do great work. So, the support I think is really always appreciated. But what else have you got for me here? Are we ready for this demo yet, or you still got some more secrets?
I'll bring one more thing before the demo. And I've been thinking I have been around a lot at all my friends. There's no real life friend that I have is in Cardano at all. I've gotten a couple of them to buy some NFTs and stuff, but I've really been talking to a ton of these people recently. And every time I pitch something new or I change it a little bit, a bunch of VCs, they don't like Cardano. I've gotten in the door a little bit and a lot of them. And by the end of it, I've gotten a bunch of business cards that are like, all right, I want to see when you guys launch. This is not a yes, but it's kind of like the beginning of the conversation. They're like, get out of my office. And then by the end of the conversation, it's like, okay, I'm not sold yet, but here's the card, message me when this is live. So, there are ways to pitch Cardano that a lot of these people are kind of seeing. And one of the things that I've really been successful with, so I just want to say this, is that this is not possible in Cardano, or it's pseudo possible in Cardano, because Cardano is deterministic. This is a little bit of a nerdy tech thing, but because it's deterministic, you've got these UTXOs. You actually can build error-free dApps because of Cardano's two-stage validation. You can build dApps that effectively never error out. And this is pretty impactful when someone's big into Solana trading, because every other time they click a button, something errors out. Yeah. So, I always get kind of heads turning when I say this. Now, it does require a couple sips with the wallets. Wallets have to cache any transaction they sign and then chain to those if someone tries to use that UTXO. But it is possible. It is because of the deterministic nature. You can build transactions that effectively don't error out and never fail. And that's a huge value proposition moving into that 2-3 year time period. When you say there's never errors, that's also pretty enticing. A lot of people like that user experience that's super smooth. So that's another impactful thing. But I'm willing to show you guys a demo now if it's time.
Yeah, go for it. Bring up the demo. Okay, looking good.
All right, so here's SaturnSwap. We've got this cute little blob image here, this graphic. There's also a swap page for just the more plain look if people don't like the graphic, but I like the blobs, so we're going to use that here. So here in this example, we're going to swap 100 ADA for, in this case, 150 glob. This is the pre-prod network, so these tokens aren't real. But as you can see here, within the actual transaction, we're making the swap. So we've got this minus 101 ADA. You can lower the fee a little bit, I think, before live. But we'll see that we're actually getting the 150 glob immediately in the transaction. There's no batcher. There's no additional transaction that gets run. If it's outside the slippage, it'll just tell you to try again. So it's all instantaneous within this one transaction. So in this case, we'll sign it. And then boom, it's queued up right into the mempool whenever the next block comes. The transaction's super, super small because I had written a very fast coin selection algorithm, so it could fit in almost any block, even under quite a bit of load. So yeah, that's basically how swapping on SaturnSwap works, and that's that's basically the speed.
Now I know there's a lot going on in the background here. Now you swapped 100 ADA for 150 of the glob token there.
Yes.
But me as a liquidity provider, I'm wanting to sell my glob. I'm selling batches, small batches. Maybe I'm only putting 10 in, then someone else is putting 50 in, and then someone else is putting another 100 in or whatever. How does the platform work out the 150 that I'm buying in this case, or you're buying in this case, from all these other depositors that put in smaller chunks or even a larger chunk?
Yes. So in this case, we have our order book. Now, in this case, because I've set up it, there's only one UTXO for each. That's basically what the order book looks like. But if we go to another token, like this Bob token, we've got a lot more in the order book, and obviously these will fill up a lot more dramatically. And then the system basically selects the best price from the order books that are available and not pending on the blockchain, in descending order. So I believe, I could buy some Bob token here. It's a little bit more expensive, as you can see. But now here it's going to execute multiple UTXOs for the measly 13 Bob. But we'll make a swap here to show how that works. And then in this case, we pay the fee, and then immediately we're getting this 13 Bob. And so we'll sign it again. And then, okay, so that was just the one UTXO there. But yeah, it basically goes through the best UTXO by descending price. And that's kind of how the system works from a swap perspective. So people can obviously place limit orders as well. And that basically will earn them fees instead of paying the fees. So limit orders are definitely a good way to trade, especially if you want to kind of earn on it. But of course, that's not the only thing. With SaturnSwap, it's a very different DEX than pretty much everything else out there. Because it's this no batcher order book, we actually don't have LP tokens or anything like that. Now that is very different from the rest of crypto. Instead of using LP tokens, every user has their own personal smart contract. And this is a good and a bad. And I'll show you why. And so, I am very, it's not all good with SaturnSwap. There are some negatives that I'll point out here on this interview. But if we go to the liquidity page, everyone can create a liquidity contract, but because the contract has bytes that have to be put on chain, it does cost ADA to actually put those bytes on. But I think we'll be able to do some incentives to help reduce it. So if someone wants to provide liquidity, they do have to have that one-time ADA payment of 28. But in exchange, they get their own personal smart contract that works kind of like a market maker bot that balances the assets that they put in at the market price. So that's a little bit of the downside, unfortunately, but in exchange, you don't get any LP tokens. There's no confusing about that. And you have your own personal contract. So in the future, when we have more advanced wallets, it can actually just be right in your wallet and saying, this is your SaturnSwap liquidity contract. So I'll just sign it here just to show you guys how that works. So in this case, it's a little bit cheaper. We're basically putting the smart contract on the blockchain. We're deploying a brand new smart contract.
That's going to push up the number of smart contracts on Cardano if people are using this a lot.
Which is why it has that min UTXO, that 28 ADA cost, because you're actually paying for all of the bytes. So this was basically, one of the things we thought about when doing this was using a wallet. That's pretty dangerous, of course, because then we store the seed phrase, which is not really secure or acceptable. So that's why we had to go with the smart contract route. But because not everybody's going to want to provide liquidity that way. A lot of people can just use the limit orders, and they still get the advantage as if they're a liquidity provider. But all liquidity providing does is it basically it automatically puts the assets that you provide at the market price. So here, let's say I want to provide 100 ADA to, the minimum of 200 in this case, but 200 ADA to the ADA Bob pool. So we're going to execute this transaction. And then in this case, it's a little bit more because there's actually an NFT that gets minted to indicate the parameters. But we sign this transaction as well. And then that would just work. Now, if you notice, I've executed a couple transactions in a row here, and they're all kind of just working. So I don't think it was chaining some things, but if you do kind of spam the transactions and do a lot, it'll all chain them together. So you really shouldn't have many failures on SaturnSwap, kind of like Levy, where it's pretty hard to get an error on Levy. People do it by doing some funny things, but very difficult. So kind of the UX is really smooth. And then we come to the UI for liquidity. Very different, again, from other assets. So basically, in this case for liquidity, we've got two different types of liquidity. We've got the order liquidity, which is orders that are waiting in that smart contract. And then we've got waiting liquidity. This is liquidity that the smart contract is going to put in orders on the smart, into the actual orders. So every minute or so, it'll take these assets and then move them to the order liquidity at the market price. So it kind of mimics an automated market maker without using the LP tokens in that. And this is because, of course, SaturnSwap really just operates with limit orders and market orders. So this liquidity contract is merely a miniature bot in a way to put assets at that market price. So it's a little bit confusing. I can go over a little bit more in depth exactly how it works. So here there's a pending transaction, so the assets are shifting. I can go a little bit more how this works in the future, but just know that it tries to mimic AMM liquidity while for an order book DEX. But it is very different. And so people can have, if I switch my wallet real quick, and this is, of course, pre-prod. So we've got crazy pre-prod wallets. Let's connect here. Yeah, so let's say you're providing, multiple things of liquidity. You could see all of your positions. You could see all of your fees earned and current fees earned and things like that. So it's a little bit advanced. So we're going to have a lot more educational material around this to show exactly how it works. This is kind of the one thing I'm a little bit nervous about because it is a little bit more complicated than other DEXs. But I think when people kind of get used to it and they see how much value they can get and how fast the original DEX is, they'll kind of become a little bit more accustomed to it.
Okay, so two parts there. First, the limit orders is probably the simplest way anyone can trade on the platform.
Yes.
You buy something at a lower price, you set your limit order of when you want to sell, and you can do multiple limit orders, so you're DCAing out of your position. So that's the easiest way. And then there's a whole new liquidity thing here. I do have to get my head around it. The
it's definitely.
Yeah.
I was trying to get my head around how to build it in a way that was as simple as possible. I think the best way of thinking about it is a very simple market maker bot that just puts assets at the market price. And that's all it tries to do.
Because I was wondering how you would get that liquidity without a bot or anything like that.
Exactly.
Because other platforms use a bot to match your orders with the correct prices and whatnot. So that's a bit of off-chain code that happens in the background. But this is all done with smart contracts on-chain.
Yes, exactly. So this is kind of the unique thing that we did because we didn't want to, bots are good because, as long as people understand that, they have the seed phrase, but also the bot has the seed phrase, bots are fine in that way if people understand that. But for kind of the core Saturn platform, we wanted something that was non-custodial and effectively risk-free there. So we did want to be, safe there. And people could always they could always make their own, wallet bot that ends up hitting, the smart contract directly or the Saturn APIs if they want. That's basically how DEX Hunter would work. DEX Hunter will directly interact with either the smart contract or the API, whichever they prefer. And they could do that. People could do that with bots as well if they want more custom stuff. So people can make a bot and then they can have fees on it. And it should actually be a lot easier because you don't have you're not competing with other batchers actually, which is really interesting. Now, I'm thinking of this live. You're not competing with other batchers for executing a UTXO in a single block. So I do think you actually probably will have people that create bots for SaturnSwap because of that.
Super interesting. Yeah, I run a couple of bots here and there and batches, and you're right. You have to compete for it, compete for the transactions. And if your bot's not as optimized as another one, you're just not going to get the transactions. You're not going to get the fees. So it's a hard game. It's a full-time job as well. So this is a completely different and really interesting approach. You also mentioned that DEX Hunter is going to be integrated in or are integrating this in at the moment as well. So that's super exciting because
DEX Hunter, Data Markets, all the aggregators.
Great. Aggregators are pretty much the way in that people do their trades. It helps optimize and get the best trade out there. So I'd love to see that in action as well and see what type of optimizations people get from their trades.
One of the nice things as well, actually, that I'll bring up. So this is a DEX Aggregator feature I didn't mention, is that with DEX aggregation, what we've done as well, because you've got that min UTXO, that almost a problem where the fees kind of go up very, very high as more people are aggregating and things like that. So you got to pay the batcher fee, then the aggregator fee, and it just keeps going up. So what we've done at SaturnSwap is an aggregator that's using the platform can actually put their fee into another address where the aggregator and SaturnSwap will share that fee. That way we can actually remove this double min UTXO that people pay. So we actually have lower fees for aggregators as well. So that's another thing we really thought of and can kind of, add some smoothness to kind of the trading, the trading for Cardano as well, especially as Cardano goes up in price, which would be nice. But
Yep.
But yeah, especially, you don't want to have Cardano be $2 and then you're paying a bunch in fees, batchers and then aggregator fees. So we really want to try allow people to have a good trading experience, even on aggregators, even if it's not on our platform.
Gotcha. Okay. Glad you thought of that as well.
Yes.
Now the other really hard thing is getting people on the platform, the whole liquidity side of things.
Yes.
Because if you don't have the liquidity, you can't trade. What's
Exactly.
your plan for that? Is it going to be a token? Because usually tokens like entice people to the platform, airdrops,
Yeah,
etc.
so there is going to be a SaturnSwap token. It's not technically with us, so it's someone else that's going to have, like a foundation type of thing that's going to launch it, and then we're going to have that on the platform. And there's going to be some, it's not exactly clear exactly how that's going to be done yet, but that's kind of the idea. Along with, of course, the governance in the staking and voting rights. So a lot of projects are already interested because of that. But then there's kind of a nice little, added incentive that we could see if we're allowed to do and everything like that. So that's basically the idea with getting liquidity. It was kind of, when I first designed SaturnSwap, I built the swap feature, and some people didn't believe me when I said this earlier. I built the swap feature in like a weekend. It's pretty easy. It was actually not that hard as well, because I had done Levy before, so I already had, I built the library that automates the transaction. So the swap feature was really easy. But I was disheartened to learn that, yes, we also need to have all this liquidity and everything in order for this to work. It's not just about building the fastest swap. Yeah. Which is why, most of the time it took to build SaturnSwap was building the liquidity system because it is kind of the most advanced of the bunch. So we have thought very deeply about some of these incentives to really get projects on board. But another thing as well that I think we do really, really well is that we really are in tune with a lot of projects, not just on Cardano. And we're really trying to make inroads there. So we've messaged basically every project you can think of that is traditionally ignored Cardano and be like, all right, it's time for Cardano to be added. We'll do the integration for free. We'll show it how to do it. So we're really trying to make inroads and making sure that Cardano is included in the rest of the crypto space. And I think that's going to have a lot of goodwill for projects coming in. They're like, oh, hey, these guys have worked with I don't want to name names yet, but this tool and this place and everything. So we know SaturnSwap, and we're gonna meet with those guys.
Gotcha. Okay. Really exciting here. You're not going to name drop anything for me, I see.
Yes,
but no,
not yet because it's not set in stone.
Yeah. Okay. But you mean platforms like other DeFi? First one that comes to mind is DeFi Llama, but other platforms like that aggregate the data and then put it on chain so that you can see how much trading volume is. All those type of platforms.
This is going to be really impactful. Yeah, this is going to be very impactful in near term for things like SNEC, where I know they're actively trying to get listed on Binance. There's RTB is doing a infinite space. He's keeping the space running until they get listed. So it's like, oh, damn, well, we need to make sure all of our stats are everywhere so that Binance can see, oh, this has got a very vibrant community, lots of trading volume, and they end up listing it. So it really is more about kind of growing Cardano as well, because one of the things I've noticed is that I can go up to a bunch of these companies and they'll just ignore me. But if Charles goes up to these companies, they're not going to ignore him, or less likely to ignore him. So I was thinking, okay, well, if I had SaturnSwap, and we had a good social media presence and we were successful, it's a lot easier to break into those conversations. Like I can't go to BlackRock and be, hey, check out Cardano as Avatar Nick. Like, who am I? You're going to kick me out of the room. But if we've got a successful product already, they'll be like, okay, well, maybe not a yes, but come to our office. Here's a meeting, et cetera, like that. So that's another thing that we're going to use SaturnSwap for. I think that's going to give us a little bit of a niche into other ecosystems that I think kind of now want to include Cardano. There's a lot of competition in the crypto space. A lot of these people are jockeying for attention, and adding Cardano with a vibrant community on Twitter, it's a very goodwill move.
Okay, all right. When are we going to see this? When can I play with it? When's the beta? When's mainnets? What's the timeline?
So I want to launch next week. So we'll say that today is June 6th, 2024. So I will say that I want to launch next week. It might eke into the week after, but it's within the next 2 weeks for sure that we will be launching.
Mainnet launch.
Mainnet launch. Yes.
Ooh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and I also want to shout out. I want to shout out Riley from Cypress Industries. He's doing our audit. So he's auditing our smart contract and liquidity and everything. So he's fantastic. He's the creator of Summon DAO. So if you guys know about that, they're actually doing the DAO work I believe they're even doing like some of the Argentine stuff for IOG with voting. I'm not 100% sure on all of that. So, but I know they've got a big role in a lot of the Constitution stuff coming out. It was the Constitutional Convention. So Riley's great. So big shout out to him for doing the audit. So we gotta shout out the people that are helping us directly. And of course, Icon, the guys, Lucas, Casey, they're always phenomenal. I really do think that Icon kind of was a huge catalyst for the explosion of Cardano dApps we're seeing, because Icon, for people that don't know, is this new smart contract language on Cardano. It's very similar to Rust, but it shows everything. It's super fast, very easy to read and use. They've built an amazing system. You can see all of the very intricate byte data that you can optimize. So I want to shout those guys out as well. Would not be possible without them.
Awesome, Nick. Hey, it's been a pleasure going through all of this and learning everything SaturnSwap. I'm going to be playing around with it when it launches on mainnet, so I can't wait for it to come into play. Any final words before we log off on this session?
Yeah, I'm excited for the future of Cardano. I think I know a lot of people that don't really know about Cardano and haven't used it before, but I think the tides are shifting. I think this year is kind of this year where we're really kind of building up all the dApps, the excitement. Obviously, we've got the governance, and then when all that comes out, it's off to the races. And I think Cardano is uniquely positioned in a very, very advantageous way to really onboard traditional finance once all of the regulation is properly set in. So very excited for Cardano in general, even if the rest of the crypto community is not really aware of some of this stuff yet. So let's show them what we're made of.
All right, Nick. Awesome. I am super excited about Cardano's future as well. It's just all the legal stuff we got to get around. And once that's all sorted, we're good to go. Well, Nick, good luck with the final weeks before launch. It sounds like everything is pretty much good to go already, but I know you're going to do a lot more interviews and Twitter Spaces or X Spaces and whatnot. So good luck with all that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pete. I appreciate the time.
Talk to you soon.